We have a Preach Gaming video that looks very good. It says how Blizzard solved the MMO problem. I don't really know what he means by the MMO problem. What I'm guessing is that like WoW hasn't been dethroned in 20 years and people are always complaining, but like come back. Like as I'm watching this video, I'm like flying around Stormwind, AFK, funny. Well, yeah, let's check it out and see what he means by it.
Warcraft has created an inescapable bubble. Final
1 second in, that's exactly what I just said. Yeah.
Fantasy XIV is about to open the floodgates and iterate on its most popular feature. Guild Wars 2 is adding raiding back and it's giving player housing. And Destiny 2 just made its key expansion feature more accessible than ever before.
I've never played Guild Wars, I've never played Final Fantasy, and I've never played Destiny.
Ladies and gentlemen, the winds are changing. And perhaps irrevocably. Speaking of MMOs, this video is brought to you by Elder Scrolls Online. I've jumped in for the very first time, added it to our MMO collection, and their Gold Road expansion, which has a whole bunch of stuff, especially some really deep stories and their side content that I wasn't expecting. It's such worth checking out if you're looking to investigate the Elder Scrolls universe. Their new zone is Westweald, where you get started. A mystery character has arrived, a prince forgotten, and memories to be found and rediscovered, and all that kind of thing to uncover. But of course, on top of that, they've got a brand new 12-man trial to be checking out, a whole bunch of new zones. And within those regions, players are going to be introduced to new characters, challenges, rewards, armor sets, and stories. And additionally, new delves, public dungeons, standalone quests, and mirror.
I actually have played Elder Scrolls Online, and it was better than I was expecting. My initial impressions were like, why don't more people play this? Like, it feels actually like pretty fluid and fun to play. So yeah, I thought ESO was solid.
Incursion World events, which I've checked out as well. Loads to be excited about. Check out the link down below, and a big thanks to Elder Scrolls for supporting us in our MMO adventure. You may not have noticed if you've been playing one of these four giants in the MMO market. Of course, there are other big names, and we're going to be watching how they respond to what these guys have done. So what? What is happening? The MMO world has been, relatively speaking, stagnant since 2004 in terms of major genre-changing moves. It often gets glossed over, but WoW's major chess move wasn't just great combat for its time and a decent world, it was actually accessibility. WoW was responsible for bringing MMOs to the general masses. Your grandma could play WoW, and does. Compared to the ultra-degen, nerd-exclusive world MMOs lived in before, it was now so easy and less punishing that it was the point of mockery from the true gamers.
Lol. Lol. Maybe this is like how you're supposed to play, like... No, it's not really any harder like that. I mean, I should take my balls out, like... No, I can, like, play with my balls.
Dude, this guy's probably a noob. This guy's probably like 1200 MMR, bro. This guy's probably a massive noob. Like, he's like, oh, how do I make it hard? Like, bro, you're a noob. All right.
Balls, like, yeah, my balls are playing, like.
But as we know, it didn't matter. The game was insanely populated now that casuals could enjoy it. The gameplay, rock solid, and we know it did very, very well. But what happened since then? The TLDR is people wanted some of that money that Blizzard was shoveling into its greedy mouth, and many attempts were made to take the crown. Off the top of my head, Age of Conan, Matrix Online, the Warhammer MMO, Aeon Online, Terra, Wildstar, all have fallen, despite each of them bringing something new and unique to the table. Two things here, right? I'm obviously aware there are hundreds, if not thousands, of MMOs that are just trucking along merrily all day, every day, right now, right? Old school RuneScape is doing great. I recently discovered, while making this, that Neocron, the first ever MMO I ever played, still live, still getting patch notes, still getting server updates, all the business. And after a little Google, it seems it has an active player base of around 35 people, and it's doing okay. Success is relative. I'm saying you don't consider yourself a failure on YouTube because you're not getting Mr. Beast numbers, right? Second thing, I did list a lot of dead MMOs, and I know those games will have die-hard fans who truly believe they didn't have the right moments, the right time and place. This should have been great. It was everybody else who sucked, all those kind of things. But ultimately, my friends, they died for a reason. And There's always going to be fans. There are people who like certain things. There are people out there who probably like Will Smith's After Earth.
I'm not a coward!
dude.
You get my point. So, what's the problem, and how has it changed the genre? Player retention. MMOs have all concluded the same thing. If people's friends stop playing, or your world becomes empty, then more people leave at a faster rate.
Yeah, I've been saying this for a long time. The best MMO is usually the one the most people are playing, and that's not the best because it's the best in itself, meaning the game is actually the best. It's the best because what makes MMOs fun is the social aspect, the social connection. So if there's more people playing, you have more opportunities to play with other people, you have more opportunities to group and dungeon and raid and PvP and do all the things that make MMOs great, and role play and just talk to someone and interact with people, right? More people means more opportunities for more interaction, which means the game is usually better. Once again, I'm not saying the best MMO in itself is the one with the most players, but the best MMO is the one with the most players. Very two different things if you're following me. And that's why MMOs are usually very fun on launch. New world launch. Million concurrent players day 1, day 2, day 3. Very fun. A lot of new companies coming up, right? A lot of new players playing, a lot of people to interact with. Lost Ark, same thing for the first couple of weeks. WoW expansions, for same thing. New servers, Deviate to Light Fresh movement, same thing. SOD, same thing. But once that fall off happens and people that you play with in your guild and your friends all quit, then it's less fun. Fundamentally, there's less people to play with, less people to do things with. So anyway, people ask me, like, am I excited for War Within? I'm like, well, yeah, because it's a new WoW expansion and it's gonna be very fun for the first couple of weeks, for sure, even if it sucks. Right? Even if it sucks. Like, even a bad MMO is still fun for a few weeks because it's still new. You still got to discover all the new stuff, and there's still people playing it to see if it sucks or not. And then if it sucks, then everyone quits. But, like, even a bad MMO is fun for a while, right? If a lot of people are playing, it's new, it's exciting. Like, people, I don't know, like, you referenced the MMOs that didn't do really well over the years. Like, maybe you have, like, WildStar. Maybe SWTOR actually did, like, kind of okay. But, like, it was probably still really fun those first few weeks, right?
It's a domino effect all the way down. When guilds collapse or the content is simply so bad it can't even tempt the loyal to stick around, then disaster inevitably follows. Now, it used to be that you could get away with mediocre content or massive content droughts and still be fine. And that was mainly because there wasn't much else on the market to really satisfy that itch that MMOs provide. More on that later. But now, that isn't the case.
Well, that's why competition is a good thing, right? It's why you want a free market. You want other companies doing other things and producing other products because it forces the company with the largest market share to get their act together and produce an even better product so that customers are happier, right? If there's no competition, then it breeds laziness and non-innovation, and then the product gets stale and worse over time, right? So the opposite is true with competition, and that's a good thing. Yeah, that's why, like, Riot MMO, very good, even if you're a Warcraft fan. Because if Riot MMO is good, then Warcraft has to compete and become better. If Riot MMO doesn't exist, Warcraft can stay mediocre and people will stay subbed. Think about Dragon Ball Z for a second. Think about Goku and Vegeta. Would Vegeta have gotten as strong if Goku didn't exist? Probably not. Right? Goku pushes Vegeta to get stronger, and Vegeta pushes Goku to get stronger. They both get stronger, right? Everyone wins. It's kind of like competition. It's like, all right, let's get the right MMO so that WoW becomes greater. It's good for everybody, especially the consumer.
The gaming market has some insanely good options to turn to when players start experiencing friction in their favorite game. So, how does the MMO makers solve this? Let's call it problem A. It's physically impossible to create enough quality content at a pace that players won't consume faster than you can make it. MMO gamers are notorious for gobbling up story, raids, dungeons in a matter of weeks compared to the months that it takes to create.
More like a matter of days. Weeks? Come on, preach. It's like days at this point, man. You get a new patch and it's like, I'm bored. It's been like 4 hours. It's like, yeah, it's got to be like days.
So then we get solution A, and it seems like the logical fix. Create a constant gameplay loop players are incentivized to do, but can't complete for a significant amount of time, aka a grind. It makes sense, of course, but inevitably, it has one final conclusion, which would be summarized as WoW's Shadowlands expansion, with a seemingly never-ending amount of chores to do. Now, I know, we crap on Shadowlands a lot, and rightly so, but more importantly, it's become a case study for many games on what you shouldn't do, what doesn't work. I have had several off-camera discussions with leaders of major video games that you've probably all played concerning Shadowlands specifically from a business standpoint. Let's just say it was a lesson learned across the industry. So now we get to the really cool stuff. Well, cool for us players, but absolutely terrifying if you are making a new MMO. I'm really fortunate. I've managed to sit down with some of the absolute paragons and leaders of this genre, IRL, face-to-face, on and off camera, and they all have very different takes on how to solve solution A. And all of them have an advantage that no other game that is being made now, or is currently out, has access to, and they're all utilizing it in different ways. Now, let's start with World of Warcraft. You might remember when I sat down with Ian and he said this about Torghast.
You had a long day at work, then you went out for dinner with your friends, with your loved ones, whatever. You come home, you're exhausted, and you realize like, oh crap, I haven't done my Torghast run
Been
for
there
the
many
week.
times.
Exactly. Does that make you feel good about World of Warcraft in that moment?
No.
Absolutely not. And so why are we doing that to people?
So what we do know is you can't make enough content to satisfy an MMO audience, but we also now know you can't force them to grind. You can't have them logging in every day and being upset and disgruntled at the content they're being made to do. So how do we solve this player retention problem?
For me, I'm excited to see what he's about to say. For me, the difference is a grind that ends versus a grind that never ends. So like a finite grind that ends is okay because someone can take a weekend off in no life and grind, or take like a couple days off work or whatever they want to do for a game launch and grind, and then it ends, and then you're at this stability point where you can log in and play when you want, raid when you want, raid log, PvP with your friends when you want, but you're not like a never-ending grind. Now the problem with Torghast was that it was continual and it didn't end. So you just had to keep going all the time. And if you missed, then you were behind. That's very different.
Well, let's start with Blizzard's idea. Blizzard obviously saw the success of Classic. It did very, very well, and we can see that on the sub-number metrics that were released recently. But they then realized something else. They have 20 years of content. 20 years of polished, refined, beloved content just sitting there, not doing anything. And that's when it dawned on them. Can't just keep re-releasing Classic, sure they will one day, but you can't spam it. But what you can do is add new things. And that is what we have seen happen in the last 6 months. These are your WoW Classic Hardcores, Plunderstorm, Mop Remix. Now, of course, we have no idea how many people just stick to retail, but definitely some of them also want that glam and transmog from Mop Remix, and probably also crossover like this. The exact numbers are, of course, remaining unknown to us. But what we do know is that they hope people who play Classic will come over to Mop Remix.
The exact numbers are actually really hard to understand, because even if you're Blizzard, it's all one subscriber. It's all one sub. So say you have a sub, say like myself. I've played retail, classic, and seasonal stuff over the last year. What would you count me as? That's tricky. It's like, well, the only person that would know that is me. Like, would I say subscribe for just retail? Would I say subscribe for just seasonal? Or would I say subscribe for just classic? That's like a hard thing to even answer myself. So that the number for that is actually really tricky, right? You would have to look at like hours spent in each game or something. Like hours spent, yeah.
Remix to get some rewards, then get a free character for the War Within, then go that way, And now they don't need to pollute retail. They don't need to fill it with all those grinds and things. Because if you're tired and frustrated with retail, guess what? You've got Season of Discovery over here. So you can now go over to this area. Go and play Season of Discovery. Oh, but there's now new stuff coming with the seasonal. I can go there. Or maybe now, I like Season of Discovery, I can go all the way into WoW Classic if I want to as well.
Yeah. So this is what they're doing, and I think it provides a solution, but it's not sexy. There's downsides to this too. The downside is what everybody is talking about lately, and that is there's too much content, there's too many WoWs, so I'm not going to play any of them, right? In business, we call this decision fatigue, right? If there's too many choices, it's like, I'm not going to pick any of them, right? That's why oftentimes it's good to limit your choices to just a good few amount of choices, like in and out or something, to where when you go, it's easy to make the choice. And I think a lot of players have thrown up their hands in frustration. There's too many WoWs, too much new content, too many choices. I'm done. I'm just going to not play at all. And that's a problem. It's a good problem, but it is a problem.
Well, the important thing that Blizzard's done that's changed the game, and literally no one else can do this. No one. They can keep you inside the WoW bubble. People paying a sub to play here are worth the same as the people paying here and here. Kinda,
not really. The retail-only subscribers have more cash shop options, like more mounts and more transmogs and more things. So the retail subscribers per sub are worth more than like a classic subscriber per sub. But so a per sub basis, it's actually more profitable for more people to be retail. That's why I think they're like trying to push people back to retail, right? That's definitely true. So once again, in business, a lot of the times a company will add in a subsidiary company to release a product that competes with their main product, and it's called cannibalism. And you might think, like, product cannibalism, to be clear. And you might think, well, why would you do that? That's stupid. Well, let me tell you why. If you have two products under your own parent company umbrella, and you're getting both of the customers loyal to your parent company, that's better than having one product and then you lose customers to another company that does what that does what you were going to do. So it's like you could have two companies that share the same customer base, but you own both of them. Or you could have the one company and you start losing market share to another company doing that thing that you could have done. So it's like, okay, we are WoW, let's release SOD to retain the player base instead of having them leave to private servers, or instead of having them leave to New World or Final Fantasy or Guild Wars or Elder Scrolls Online. So let's create competition to our own game, but own it under the same parent company, right? So let's product cannibalize on purpose to retain customers, right?
Is a sub. And more importantly, your money isn't going to some other company. The comfy, familiar blanket of World of Warcraft is now available everywhere without the need to spam one of these with update after update after update. Switching MMOs is a really big deal for a lot of people. People do not like change. MMOs by nature are habitual. Have you ever had a large group of people swap games for a single day? I have. It's a clown show. The UI is different. I don't know the stats. I don't know what the classes do at endgame, and they ditch that game quickly. Blizzard's bubble is growing faster than it ever has. Let's go back to droughts and content releases mentioned earlier. Look at this. Typically, Blizzard is utter chaos. In the past, Blizzard has averaged a new content patch every 120 to 150 days, with some absolutely hilarious outliers, like Siege of Orgrimmar being the last patch before the 429-day gap until Warlords of Draenor. Or, of course...
You know, it's funny. Someone asked me yesterday what the best patch in the game ever was, and a lot of people actually said Siege of Orgrimmar 5.4. It was the longest patch, but it was actually like 5.4 was actually like a pretty decent patch. So just to say, like, it's kind of nice if we're gonna have that long of a patch, at least it is 5.4. Sure.
And 29-day gap until Warlords of Draenor. Or, of course, more recently, a single patch for Shadowlands took longer to make than the release of all the patches of Warlords of Draenor combined. But oh, what is this?
A dragon.
Since Dragonflight, that average, that 100+ days, has dropped to 26 days.
Wow. This is a really good visual. This is like a really good visual. It's like, it's almost like consumerism has changed. YouTube Shorts, TikTok brain, right? Like, give me more content, more content. Let me consume it faster. And Blizzard seems to be, you know, changing their content strategy with that. Like, let's give people new content all the time, but the content's a little more bite-sized. All right, SOD, Hardcore, Plunder, Remix, Classic, Kata, War Within. It's just like boom, 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 boom. You know, it's kind of crazy. Huh. Yeah, it's a really good visual of this.
A total, utter obliteration and a fraction of what it once was. It's really interesting when we look at these numbers. You can see the number 77 pops up a lot. 77 days, 11 weeks, right? More than to be coincidence. There is no doubt the internal target for content release is 11 weeks. We see this as far back as Wrath of the Lich King. And when they don't hit that target, it's typically pushed to somewhere around 144 days. In other words, pushed into the next patch window. It doesn't always work for sure, but it's pretty close. Now it gets more interesting. We can see that the classic team and the retail teams seemingly do work with this same schedule in mind of 11 weeks each. However, they don't always hit those targets, but now it's for different reasons. The change in that window is simply due to overlapping releases of new content, as there is so damn much coming out, it would literally be releasing on the same day. Let me give you a clear example.
Well, Mop Remix came out 4 days before Kata Classic, and as a consumer, it was frustrating. I wanted to play both, and I literally couldn't, right? And this is another good example. Wrath and what came out, was it Shadowlands? Came out like right after Wrath. It was so annoying. You know, you want to play both.
The Lich King Classics ICC patch.
Yeah.
Something much looked forward to. We're going to get those Deathbringers wills. If it would have come out on the 11-week cycle like its previous patch did, it would have released on the exact same day as they were releasing 10.1.7, the Dawn of the Infinite Heroic, and the Dream Surges patch in retail WoW. This is speculation, of course. I've never had this confirmed. But as we always say, Blizzard never does anything in small moves. And this improvement of content cadence is impressive and very on brand for the big boy. There needs to be a word of warning here, though. Based on what we've seen, Blizzard is risking putting themselves back into a Shadowlands daily scenario. You can predict that guy who's finishing work and loves World of Warcraft, he can't wait to get home, and he plays everything. He might end up in that scenario that Ian mentioned. He's got some things to do with his family. He's also got his Cataclysm raid tonight. He's also got to get onto retail to do his vault. He's also then got to get onto Mott Remix in order to do his bronze dailies, because he's after that mount that he's been farming for literal years. It might not happen. We don't know what the crossover of players is, but there will be some. And frustration and burnout could get very real.
That's happening. Yep.
Blizzard has changed the game. The ecosystem they've created cannot be matched by anybody who has an MMO now, and certainly any MMO that's coming in the future.
Yep.
Look at it this way. Dragonflight has released 20 patches since it launched. Only 9 of them were for the new, current retail game. 11 of those patches are using old, reused, modified assets for content that has just been sat on their servers for years and years at this point. And I am not bashing them for this. It's working. It's fun. It's exciting. It's interesting. They have managed to create a world where their games are not polluted, not bogged down with needless content. They're just releasing it elsewhere and keeping their players going round the ecosystem over and over again while staying within their familiar comfort zone that MMO players really enjoy. And they're doing all of this without giving a single penny to another company. But the other titans of this genre have also been paying attention, and they have come up with ways of defeating this problem themselves, using their strengths in a way that probably no other MMO in creation now or coming in the future could possibly compete with. And we will be looking at that in part 2, because this video is already very, very long.
Oh,
I do want to
man.
thank ESO for sponsoring this video, and you players of ESO, you better watch out, because I'm going to see you soon.
All right, that was a good video. I'm excited for part 2. Yeah, Blizzard has a new problem on its hands, right? It's like, yeah, you have a way to retain players, but it's almost too much content for some players, too many choices, too many options, and that comes with its own downsides. So they solved one problem and it created another. And, you know, that's how a lot of solutions happen. It's like, okay, well, we can solve that for now, but now we have this problem. And then we can solve this, but now we're going to have this problem. We can solve this, now we have this problem, right? And that's just how it works. That's very normal, natural. That's kind of how it works. But I'm excited to see what they do. You know, as a consumer, it's exciting, but frustrating, I'd say. You know, I want to play all of them, but obviously you kind of have to make a choice at some point, like where you want to spend your time. So like I chose Kata over Mop Remix. You know, War Within is going to come out, then they'll probably do Plunder, and it's like, okay, well, I probably want to play Plunder over War Within, maybe. Who knows? Or maybe not. Maybe the other way around. And then it's like you have to keep making these choices. Then it's like, did I make the right choice there of where to spend my time? You know, versus in the past, what was really nice was everybody played WoW. Everybody was on one version of WoW. You want to play with your friend? I just hit invite. They're already on. Everyone is just playing WoW, right? Now it's like, you want to play? It's like, oh, what are you playing? It's like, oh, I'm playing Kata. Oh, I've been on SOD. Oh, okay. Then there's this weird disconnect there because you have this value system of the things in Kata. They have this value system of the things in SOD, and then there's a disconnect. You can't really relate, and that problem continues further with Plunder, Mop Remix farming, retail, right? Becomes a very complex problem. Once again, good problem to have, but it is a problem.